Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and it's good to have you here. Our topic today is going to be on attitudes and stress. Attitudes and stress. So here we go. We'll go ahead and get started. We are looking at kind of the crux of Greet the Week is to always live in the now, because this is the only moment at our disposal, and to realize that there's a lesson in everything, and we can learn more, and to always be aware. So our attitudes and stress. Thing of it is that we are very creative people, and we create chaos when reality becomes too much for us. So this back several years ago. Well, anyway, this is kind of on the stress prevention. This was a comment that I got from Johnson and Haley back, and they say about stress prevention that preventing all stress is not a reasonable goal. So, just give a sigh of relief. Of course, there's kinds of stress. There's eustress and there's distress, but preventing all stress is not a reasonable goal. However, preventing stress from taking over our life is an important part of taking care of our overall health, and the fact that we need to, look at all aspects. So I drew some little ways here to begin to look at how we can see. Anyway, the first one is it's the comfort zone, it's the safety zone. But after a while, and we're just within those boundaries, after a while, it becomes stagnant. And whenever it becomes stagnant and we begin to want change, then what happens is all too often, there on the second one, is that we come into the snap zone, because we look at our current versus the ideal that's going on in our head, and we'll just kind of jump into it with some major goals, and maybe not giving enough time for the success to grow. And so then it becomes a negative stress. But as we can begin to go to the grow zone, and that is where we look at where we currently are, and we begin to grow into what we want the changes to be. So we stretch, then we stabilize, and we stretch again, so that we are growing into a way that is, we are growing into a new definition of who we are and a new way of seeing things. And it contributes to a positive stress that we can begin, we begin to feel it, that I'm getting stronger in whatever area we're beginning to grow in. And that we see it as a good thing, and that it begins to build our character, and it begins also to practice happiness. That how can I? So, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, or at least that's the way we become. Whatever continually goes through our mind, our thoughts, our actions, we become that. So, Bill Crawford made the comment saying that every thought, emotion, and action is a statement about who we are, as well as who we are becoming. And so my thought is, if all of our thoughts, all of our emotions, all of our actions are about who we are and or who we're becoming, why don't we make this statement on purpose? I go back to a good friend of mine years ago. We were working together, and I had gotten a haircut, and apparently, she was surprised at my haircut. It was from having been long to being real short and all this, and she was rather surprised at that. And she made the comment to me, she said, "Did you do that on purpose?" And I always think that, I want to do things on purpose, and things that are beneficial. So looking at the problem is not necessarily the problem as much as it is the way we see the problem. Again, going back to our attitude. So stress is a permanent condition, according to that it's always there, that it's either the eustress that's good or it's the distress that's negative. So what are some of those causes? And there are causes. Some is change. You know, when things begin to change, being uncomfortable, when there's conflict, when there's criticism, when there's concerns, whether it's someone else's health or the condition of the job, or goodness, we have so many concerns in our world right now. Every time you pick up the newspaper, there's more concerns to be concerned about, and crises and control. But we can also begin to look at, although there's those stressors, there's also can be that serenity. And one of the things that can cause serenity is whenever we begin to make a choice, begin to realize that we do have choices, and we have a multitude of them. And that as we begin to look at one and then follow through with it, therefore, then we begin to change. Rather than looking at all the distress, we begin to look at how we can learn from those situations. And then comedy, you know, look at something funny, see the realities of life and the facts of life, and that it can be frustrating, but it also can be funny. To have some calm and to look at candor, and then always going back to control. And as we can become in control of our thoughts and our attitudes and our actions and our belief system, then we have a more leaning towards being serene. So self-care, what is it? Well, self-care is a way of living that keeps you refreshed and replenished and motivated and growing. It is kind of the equivalent of keeping your car filled with gas or you know, hooked up to the electricity so that you're ready to motor when life calls. And then knowing that good health always pays off. So what can we do to break some of that stress that's overwhelming, that is becoming distress? It is to be aware, have some kind of a signal, whether it's, you know, your shoulders kind of coming up to meet your ears, or what is that stress signal that lets you know that it's time to bust it? So some of the things you do is just going through your whole body and clamping the muscles and then relaxing them. And as you begin to do that, whether it's using your hands literally to give yourself pressure, or with your arms to give yourself pressure, and then releasing that, and it's just so relaxing. Or stretching and yawning, and then breathing from the diaphragm where it goes all the way down into the belly, and then just let it go. Get up and move, walk around, run, change scenery, go outside. Have some kind of a support system that you can call and talk with. Always remembering a Sabbath rest. There are some psychological techniques. We can begin to visualize, see a place where you've spent time, or just, you know, go back to that wonderful reunion that Sharon was talking about, you know, that visualizing where you go back to and imagine each scene and re-experience something that's been very pleasant before. Also humor. It's been linked to increasing our relaxation, decreasing anxiety, and improving the immune system. And then, of course, there's that positive thinking. It's that affirmation that helps you to build self-confidence and change those negative behavior patterns into positive ones. So we can also beat stress environmentally by changing your physical environment. Go outside, walk around, listen to some relaxing music. Simplify, begin to reduce some clutter. Give everything a home. If it's something that's just sitting on the desk to take care of later, well, put it in the later box rather than just having it sit there and adding to the clutter. Learn a little bit more of time management, how there's think time and real time. And sometimes we think this will only take a short time, when in actuality, it takes a long time. Then planning, you know, what is it you want to do? And then scheduling, when is it that you're going to do that? And then the importance of a to-do list and the equal importance of a will not do list. And then the balance of the 2-minute rule. Sometimes if we can give it 2 minutes or just a very few minutes, to kind of get things in order, it can work better than trying to struggle through it. And then always there's our spiritual ways of relieving stress. We can pray. We can just be grateful. I mean, it may not be the absolute best, but thankful for what we do have and expressing thanks. Thank you for taking the trash out. Thank you for closing the door. Thank you for not slamming it. Just be and express thanks. And then always looking for the best, that knowing, that each person has worth and valuable, and we have different insights and so forth, but just always looking for the best. And then find the lesson in it. And whatever those situations are there that you're kind of getting stressful about, see what kind of a lesson life is teaching you about you. And then know that like calls to like, that we are drawn to either the chaos that we are creating, or we're drawn to the relaxing that we are creating, if we allow ourselves to know that. So in the social health, it's knowing that we live in community. And there is an African word, itanbu, that means apart from the community, we are nothing. And in placing the blame on me or placing the blame on another, on you, what is happening is we are taking the problem down to the singular and we're placing blame. Whereas when we go with the apart from community, we are nothing. When we look at that this problem, that this situation is a part of we, then it can spread out with the community where we can all find peace. So it's BOP time. I worked with the Bureau of Prisons for years, but this particular BOP time came from the Change Company, which was a company that produced a lot of signs and programs and so forth for the actual Bureau of Prisons. So, but they called it the Brief Opportunity for Progress. And what it was, brief. Periodically, there would be a 2-minute burst to tap into energy, kind of refocus your thinking and to express personality and create fun. Like maybe someone would stand up and start singing a song, or would, get up and maybe run around and encourage others to get up and take a quick run around the tables also. The opportunity part of the BOP, Brief Opportunity for Progress, was that no one was forced to participate. But the fact that the joy of the experience was usually too alluring, to pass up. So, okay, if you're going to get up here and act like an idiot, I'll get up here and act like an idiot too for just a few minutes, and we'll all be in harmony together. And the progress is that it begins to move you forward to accomplishment, because even just that few minutes of interruption, although it may take a little bit of time to get back into what you were working on, it moves you forward to accomplish. And the statistics, the results of that, according to the owner, Don Kuhl, said that in 1 year of having those brief opportunities for progress, that their whole company, a staff of 30, that collectively they had lost over 250 pounds. They had reduced absenteeism way down, and their insurance costs had been reduced by 30%. And then he did not give any accolades to the advanced in relationships and productivity. So we can have our physical health, just by watching what we eat and making sure that we have good fluids in as opposed to negative fluids, to be active and taking care, sleeping, having fun. Keys to success is to focus on one change at a time, to make plans and fulfill them, to start gradual and build. That's what we were looking at there with the flow chart, the grow chart. To set specific goals, measurable goals, positive goals, and that are looking at the present tense. Instead of I'm going to, it's what I am doing. And then write it down. That just adds significance to it. It adds solidity to it. And then get social support, don't just you, and always embrace success. And then know that as you have grown into the goals that you're growing into, then it becomes easier to have additive goals because you've grown. So transformation, it's knowing that we cannot change another. We can only change ourselves. And that can be quite a challenge. But by changing, what about ourselves can we change? Well, we can change our perspective. We can change the way we see something. And by doing that, we can begin, as we begin to change our perspective, we kind of switch our viewpoint a little bit, and it begins to open some clarity. And as that clarity is opened, it ushers in a space for some harmony and for self-improvement. So here is a quote from Peter Marshall that I go back and read frequently because I find it to be so powerful. It says, rest is no matter. And he used the word rest, but we could say stress is no small matter. Most of us manage to have problems with work and at the same time to have problems with resting or with relaxing. Indeed, rest and work may involve similar activities done in a different spirit. You may put more energy into work than maybe you put more energy into play and rest than you do into work. But sometimes there's similar activities done with a different spirit. The question is not about the activity itself, but about the orientation of the heart. Resting is tied intimately to faith. Genuine rest requires acknowledgement that God and others can survive without us. The thing I like about that is that realizing that, I am a person of worth and value, but I'm not the master of the universe. And that right there can just be so relaxing. It's just like breathing out and having room to breathe back in. So myself, in looking at times of stress and maybe an attitude that is not one that is worth catching, I began to ask myself some questions. How are my priorities out of order? How am I trying to force external control? Are my values clearly defined? Is it poor planning and execution? Have I over-exaggerated sense of self? Do I have a lack of self-control? And then what about that Sabbath rest? Because as we can begin to look at things in life in a different manner, we can begin to realize that that stress that's always there. If we didn't have stress, we wouldn't be erect. We would just be like a rag doll. We would just flop around. So that stress is always there. But let's allow it to be a relaxing stress rather than going to the huge stress. So thanks for being here. And I will stop the recording. And those that are here live, we will chat.